So today's project is using elastic bands and a jam jar and some spray paint. So I have bought my spray paint from Oasis because it's really good as well, not only spraying containers, but also you can spray actually your flowers as well if you wanted to, for every reason, change the colour of your flowers. So you could use any kind of spray paint. So it may be that you've got much smaller containers from the DIY store, or you know, leftover silver paint from Christmas, something like that. Silver or gold paint will work really well. And what I'm going to do is to take my jam jar, and I've been collecting elastic bands. Now you'll quite often find the postman drops elastic bands along the street, so you ought to pick them up. And the elastic bands are really good if you decide to go foraging as well. So if you're going for a family walk and you've got too much to hold in your hand, if you've got an elastic band in your hand, in your pocket, you can tie the stems together, and it means that you don't have to hold the stems by the stem. You could actually hold them halfway up, and it holds everything together. So really simple thing to do. Elastic band onto jam jar, and I've got several here, slightly different thicknesses, but it doesn't matter. And you just put on as many or as few as you like, and then get your spray paint out. So what you might want to do is to wear a glove, because we will be spraying near your hands, and the spray paint does come off, but you might be more comfortable wearing a glove. And what I've got here on the side, I've got a cardboard box, so I tend to spray into the cardboard box, and it just confines the spray really. So if you're doing this outside, you would need to put newspapers down, or a painting cloth, something like that. But you will find if you're too gung-ho about it, you'll end up with spray paint on your shoes, on your arms, and perhaps unwittingly on the patio tabletop, or even on your grass as well. So, cardboard box at the ready, spray paint at the ready. So you need to shake your spray paint. And the idea here is you're putting really light coats of paint onto your jam jar. If you go too heavy with your paint, you'll find that it drips and it becomes very wet. You're aiming for a mist of spray paint on your jar. And I'm holding the jam jar, my fingers with the gloved hand, and then pointing down. Oops. You see that coming on there? So I started there, but I haven't got around that side yet. And just really light sprays. Oops, box doesn't want to be there. So aiming down into the box, so my box has got a tiny bit of spray paint down inside, and then turn round and just carry on. So you can build up the layers, and it may be that you want to come back to it. So I would say do a really light coating first of all, and then put your jam jar down, and then come back 5 minutes later and add another thin layer up, so you can build up the layers. So just don't rush this bit. It doesn't actually take very long, but just don't rush it. So I shall move that box out of the way and then show you a jam jar that I've prepared a little bit earlier. So you can see here with my white paint, it just gives it a very classy look. You could do this without the elastic bands on, just spray paint your jam jars, and then take off the elastic bands. So you really do need to make sure that your paint is dry before this. If you take the elastic bands off too soon, you're going to smudge the paint and you're going to lose the effect. But that is the effect I've got. So what I'll do is I'll take a photograph of that and post it, so you can see more clearly what I've been doing. But that's just a really easy way of upcycling your jam jar, and that would look beautiful with a nightlight in. If you're having summer party, or even Christmas time, or as the autumn evenings start to draw in, lovely to have some candlelight at home, so it looks really, really pretty. And of course you could go all different colours. So Christmas time you could go the reds, golds and silvers. Springtime, the pastel yellows, pinks and greens. We're going into Easter, and then summer, much brighter colours. Up to you. I do think it looks really gorgeous. And if you were feeling brave and you had a straight-sided conventional vase, you could do the same trick as well and upcycle something that had a bit of quality to it to begin with. So these techniques we've been using on the cheap, recyclable jam jars, which otherwise would have gone in the recycling bin, is one thing, but actually you could be adapting these techniques with a bit of practice on something that doesn't matter first of all, and then do it on a conventional jar as well. So that would be your lovely little jam jar. Now, if you wanted to adapt the technique, you may not have spray paint to hand. You could use washi tape and conventional emulsion paint. So I've just been decorating our front rooms and I've got a can of paint left, and what I've done is I've taken some of the washi tape, which is decorative masking tape, and I've wrapped the washi tape around a jar, creating much the same sort of pattern as we did with the elastic bands. And then I got my emulsion paint and painted the jar. So I used emulsion, number one, because I had it to hand, but you just need to be careful when you're painting on glass that whatever paint you're using sticks to the glass, and I knew the emulsion would. And again, I gave that 2 light coats, and that's been drying overnight. So you can see I've painted my living room in this greyish colour, and then very carefully you can start to peel off the washi tape, and that will give you the same look. Oops. The washi tape here was crossing over. Just being extra careful, I'm not working too fast. And put all that hard work in, and this gives you, well, fatter lines because my washi tape was chunkier than my elastic bands. Though I did use a different width washi tape as well, so I've got 3 widths. I've got a narrower one, a middle size, and a slightly larger one, which is the conventional size you've probably seen in the shops. And then just trying to find where all the bits of washi tape started. But you get the idea. It's something you could use to create the same sort of effect as the elastic bands, but on a slightly larger scale with more dramatic markings. So you can start to see how that's looking. Bigger patches of paint on there. So you've got options. You can always adapt what I'm showing you to make it fit for whatever materials you've got around at home. Now, in terms of the little jam jar, I've been round to the garden and picked some bits and pieces. So again, I always say I don't feel I have very much in my garden in terms of flowers. These flowers are left over from a bunch that I had delivered. They were the side shoots I had to take off from flowers when I arranged them in a vase. And then in my garden I found little dahlia, so I'm coming into beginning of September now, so I've got dahlia in my garden, and buddleia, which is the butterfly bush, a little bit of conifer, it's quite a golden colour, and then a scented rosemary, crocosmia, which will open out slightly, and then I think this is a scented geranium. It's certainly smelled the perfume of the leaves when I picked it up, and then a leaf from another geranium as well. So get my water into my jar, and I've got a tiny jar here, so I'll be cutting my flowers down really short, measuring it up against the jar. So here we are, jam jar with my little leaf cut to size, and I'm going to use these indentations, natural cuttings in of the leaf, to hold my flowers in place. So as my jar is really tiny, everything else, everything I put into it needs to be small, because otherwise it will topple over. If you go too big with a small, too many big materials in a small jar, it'll become unbalanced. So I'm having to think about the jar and then go from there. And what I'm going to do here, I've left 2 leaves on buddleia. I'm going to take these off because I think in relation to the scale of the jar, those leaves, although they're quite small, are still going to be quite overpowering. So slide that in between the cut leaves, and that's holding that buddleia up, straight up. And I've kept 2 a sort of orangey purple palette, so they're complementary colours on the colour wheel, so they just go together opposite each other, and that will rest. The dahlia there, and it's resting through the little indentations of the geranium leaf. And then this really small geranium looks really delicate, but actually, again, that's going to be too big for the jar. I'm going to cut the flower off, and then with the other bits of green and these seed heads that are developing, cut those down to the same length. So that one skinny bit of geranium has given me two little placements of flowers. And just putting them in evenly around the edges. So really with the dahlia, that's my focal flower. It's the one I'm noticing first of all. So I'm going to arrange that facing me, so it's where your eye lands, and then have all the other flowers supporting that. And then rosemary is a beautifully scented flower as well. Absolutely gorgeous. So rosemary is for remembrance. So you could, as you're arranging with it, think of your lovely time you've had over the summer holidays or family parties, or remembering family members. And then with the crocosmia, the Montbretia, this natural curl, I'm going to get that to curl out across the side of the vase, almost as if it's cuddling that side of the jam jar. And then with my, these are trachelium, the side shoots of the trachelium, I can come in and fill in any gaps. And in actual fact, I think probably if I didn't have these trachelium, I wouldn't really need much else in the jam jar. I'm nestling that one there, put it right down over the leaf. So you've got this expanse of green leaf. If I can just have something little hovering over the top, it just breaks that mass of the leaf down a bit. And you've got a lovely textural contrast there between the flat of the leaf and then these little dotted buds. And I think probably, perhaps I might put another one in just to repeat the trachelium across the other side. I'm not sure it needs it really. So you can make a lovely little display with hardly anything. So I would think that is my finished arrangement. I've still got a few more buds left, and I will use those in something else.